Hi, welcome to this course on Python, and in this video we shall be talking about the various OOPS concept in Python. What exactly is OOPS? OOPS is nothing but object oriented programming language. In Python, object oriented programming or OOPS is a programming paradigm that uses objects and classes in programming. It aims to implement real world entities like inheritance, polymorphism, encapsulation, etc. in the programming. The main concept of OOPS is to bind the data and functions that work on that together as a single unit so that no other part of the code can access the data. What are some of the major concepts in OOPS? Some of the major concepts are class, objects, polymorphism, encapsulation, and inheritance. So in this video, we shall be focusing about all these topics. We will be creating objects, we'll be creating classes, we'll be talking about inheritance, polymorphism, and encapsulation. So let's get started. So creating classes and objects. As I have already explained, in this session, we will be covering the most important concepts in OOPS, which you may come across when working in the field of data science and analytics. An object oriented programming method enables us to think like we are working with real life entities or objects. The first and foremost technique is whenever you start writing a code, be it a Java code or any Python code, we have to first define a class, right? Of course, we have to define methods, but ultimately, your methods will be a part of a class, right? Defining a class. Let's say in this exercise, we'll be creating a class and we'll also be defining some methods. Let's see what exactly are they. Here in this example, length and breadth as attributes. We have a init function, which is nothing but the constructor of the class. We have a self parameter, which refers to the newly created instance of the class. Attributes length and breadth are associated with self keyword to identify them as instance variables because length and breadth will belong to the instance. So here I have created a class which is rectangle class. I have an init function. Init is the constructor of the class. That means by default it will be created when the, you can see, create the object by calling name of the class following by parenthesis. Here I have defined my function. I have passed my attributes as self. Okay. And here self dot length equals to 10, self dot breadth equals to 5. So I'm initiating my length and breadth as 10 and 5. Create the object by calling name of the class followed by parenthesis. Print the values using dot operator. Let's try to understand this particular code. Class rectangle, def init, self, self dot length equal to this and self dot breadth equal to this. 4 lines of code, nothing complicated. So this is a proper explanation. The class name is rectangle. Simple. Class name is rectangle and here init is a constructor. Self is nothing but the parameter, refers to the newly created instance of the class. Length and breadth are instance variables and these numbers 10 and 5 are the values assigned. Now what is constructor? We talked about constructor. Init is a constructor, but what is a constructor? Does it construct something? Because the name is constructor. A constructor is a special kind of method that Python calls when it instantiates an object using the definitions found in your class. Now, how do we call the function? How do we call the class? The first thing is to instantiate your class object. Okay, so I do rect equals to rectangle. That means I'm calling my rectangle class and I'm assigning that class to rect variable. If I'm able to do that, I'm able to call my class. What are my length and breadth values? I can simply access these variables using the class object. So here, that is the reason I have done rect equal to this, and then rect dot breadth. If I print, I haven't run this code, so let me run this. The rect dot breadth is 5 because you have defined it as 5. What will be rect of length? It will be 10 because it is defined as 10. Simple. Now here I am printing, simple printing my length and then slash and breadth. Simple. So my length is this and breadth is this. Next we will be learning is parameterized constructor. So init is a default constructor. Everybody is clear with that? Next topic is going to be parameterized constructor. What is that? A parameterized constructor dynamically assign the attribute values during object creation. So just imagine I have defined my rectangle class. This is my initial code, initial 4 lines of code. Here what I'm doing is instead of self, I'm also passing length and breadth as an input. And then I will be assigning those values in the function. So I have passed some attributes. That means now my class object can take these two attributes as an input variable. And these inputs are getting passed to init function, and that length and breadth are assigned here. Which basically means, for example, I am passing my rectangle function as 1 and 2. That means my length will be 1, my breadth will be 2. So let me just run this code, and here I'm instantiating my class, but I cannot instantiate my class without these parameters because we have defined length and breadth. So you have to pass two parameters. So if I do this, I can simply call the instance variable rect of breadth equals to 10. If I'm changing it, my length is 20 and breadth is 20 as well, which makes it a circle, square, but it's okay. If I do this, then my breadth is 20. Let's say my length is 40 and breadth is 20. So you can see. Next, we'll be learning about class variable and instance variables. Now here, length and breadth are instance variables. I think we got a fair amount of idea about instance variables. But what are class variables? Let's say I have defined a circle class pi equals to 3.14, def of init self of radius, self dot radius equals to radius. Here your class is a keyword. Everybody knows that because we have already talked about variables and keywords in the first class. Circle is my class. Simple. Pi is my constant value or class variable because I have defined this variable in class. And this radius is going to be your instance variable that user can call and change it. Okay. So circle of 5, circle.pi 3.14. You can see I'm instantiating my class object as 5, and then my radius is 5, but my pi is 3.14. So I'm not passing pi as a input here because pi is already defined in the class. So that is basically a class variable. Okay. And the variable that you provide during calling the instance of it or calling the instance of the circle class or your own class, that is basically instance variable. Circle 1 of circle 5, radius is this, pi is this. So I'm changing the values, but my pi values are not changed because it is defined in the class. How to change the class variable? We can easily change the class variable by accessing the class object and the class variable. So circle dot pi equals to 3.1436. Earlier it was 3.14. Now if I do this and then again call a circle function and then call my radius function, of course this will return me 5 because I have passed 5. What will be pi function? You can see the pi value has changed. Initially it was 3.14, but here we have directly assigned a new value. Simple. So that's all about the basics of class variable and instance variable. Our next topic is going to be adding a method to a class. So we will be adding a function called as function or method called as calculate area, which will return, so my bad, returns the product of attributes length and breadth, and we have self, which identifies its association with the instance. So I have defined my class object like class name, and I have a init function. So self length breadth and self dot length equals to length, self dot breadth equals to breadth. Simple. I have defined another function calculate area on self, return self dot length dot self dot breadth. That means I'm doing a dot product here. I'm multiplying the length and breadth. So I'm instantiating the rectangle class with 10 and 5. Length is 10 and breadth is 5. What will be the length? Rect dot length is returning me 10 and rect dot breadth is returning me 5. I can directly call my calculate area function by doing class object dot method and then round braces. That's how you call your function. If I do this, I'm getting 50 because my length is 10, my breadth is 5, and it is taking those values and then doing a dot product. Simple. What is the significance of self? The attributes length and breadth are associated with an instance. Self makes sure that each instance refers to its own copy of attributes. That is the importance of self. New rect equals to rectangle 15:8. So this is a simple thing. I'm just printing my length, breadth and area. Here also I'm doing the same thing. Next, we will be learning about inheritance and overriding. I will not be able to talk about these topics in depth because in depth if I talk about all these topics there will be a whole bunch of like 5-6 hours of program only on the OOPS concepts because OOPS itself is vast. But as our main motto or main goal is towards data science and analytics, these topics are very low priority. It's like good to know basis because our primary skills are not Python. Our primary skills are going to be in going forward, it will be machine learning, deep learning, your NLP, analytics, and all those things, right? So I'll quickly give you a glance about all these topics in case you are not able to understand. Probably you can check out some other materials on the web to get more details about these topics. So here I have defined the employee class employee, define function one. So there is a function one which is hello world. Here I have defined a department class, but I'm passing my employee class as a argument. I'm doing pass. So what is happening here? You can see this is my parent class and this is somehow my child class and I'm passing my employee object here. So if I run this, you can see I'm instantiating my employee object and then I'm calling my function one. So what is happening? I'm getting hello world. When I'm instantiating my department, I'm still able to call my function one even if in my department there is no function one. Here, even if there is no function in department 1, we are still able to access function 1. Why? Because of inheritance. Because our department is the child class, it is inheriting the properties of your parent class. So that is the reason department.function1 is not throwing any error. If you simply do this, and then let's say you are printing something. Let's say we are printing hello world, or let's say just world. If I run this, and then if I run this, you can see department object has no attribute function one because it has no attributes. But if you are using your parent object here, that means you can still be able to access the parent function. Similarly, we'll also have another example. I have defined a class here, shape. I have defined a method here, set color, which is taking color and setting it. Calculate area, self, pass. Color the shape, self. Color price equals to red, 10, and it is returning me calculate area multiplied with self.color. So what's happening all these things? Little bit complicated code, but we'll try to deep dive and understand. What is set color? Set color is instance method because it is the part of your instance. When you're instantiating shape object, you will be able to use these methods. So they are called as instance methods. Color is your instance variable, right? Here pass. Method is associated with a class, but it is abstract. There is no logic. So there is no logic why we are using pass here. Let's say I have defined a circle class, pi equals to 3.14. We already know. Okay. So we have defined two functions here, and here I have defined the definition. So these are your instance objects. Method is associated with a class, but is abstract. There is no logic. Here you can see method, we have a circle function, def calculate area, method overriding. Okay, so what's happening here is I'll explain. So you can imagine this as your parent class. Okay, this is your parent class, and this is your child class, which is inheriting shape. That means, will I be able to access color the shape method if I call circle class? Yes. What will happen in calculate area? Because calculate area, here I'm just doing pass, but here I have some function. So this basically means that shape is your parent object. Your calculate area pass method is associated with a class, but it is abstract. There is no logic, which means if any other class is inheriting shape function or shape class, you can write your own calculate area logic in those classes, and you can still calculate the areas, because your areas will depend upon the type of shape. Rectangle will have length into breadth, circle will have pi r square. So formulas differs, right? So that is the reason I have defined a circle class which is inheriting shape, and here I have defined my calculate area, which is circle.pi multiplied with self.radius. And now if you are instantiating my circle object, which is 5, you are providing 5, c.setColor red, you can see you are able to print the circle with radius 5 when colored red costs 157. What will be the calculate area? 5 multiplied with 3.14, somewhere around 15 point something, so 15.7. Similarly, another example, I have defined a rectangle which is also inheriting shape. It also has a method called as calculate area, which is getting overridden. So this is the concept of overriding. You have your parent class, you have defined a method. You have child class where you have defined the method, the same method. That's basically overriding. You already have a method in your parent class and you are overriding the same method in your child class. This is overriding user defined method. I have also defined a function return area of rectangle. This is also overriding Python default method. If I run this, and if I'm calling my length and breadth as this, set color as blue, it is printing me the length is 5, the breadth is 10, and the R color is blue because I have defined it as blue, and the color the shape, it is returning me 750. Okay, what is color the shape? Color the shape is this one. It is calculate area multiplied with color. So calculate area is taking from your child class, like this one, length into breadth, which is 5 into 10, which is 50, and 50 multiplied with set color. Blue has 15, So 50 multiplied with 15 is 750. So that is the reason I'm getting here value as 750. Simple. And R dot calculate area gives you 50 and C dot calculate area gives you 15. Little bit complex, but trust me, it's very simple. Once you get this code, once you run these codes on Jupyter Notebook or on Google Colab, you will be able to understand these concepts. Everything has been explained very well, very properly. So that's all about the basics of OOPS concepts in Python. I hope you enjoyed, and in the next videos we shall be jumping into the Python for data science part. Thank you.